should start. So good morning, everybody. It's Melinda Jones here from National Council of Jewish Women of Australia. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome. This is our first ever Bake Along and our first engagement at National Council, with a webinar with Lisa and the Monday morning cookbook crowd. Lisa Goldberg is the person who's you can see on your screen. Lisa and her colleagues came to our national conference last year. Was it only last year? It feels like such a long time ago. And of course, they've been dazzling the world with the fantastic recipes and the fantastic way in which they've been engaging with Jewish food and Jewish cooking. And so we're absolutely delighted that Lisa has been able to join us this morning and giving us a niche opportunity. Normally she has crowds of 500 from all around the world. So this is a great opportunity. And you can look out for many more opportunities with her. Lisa's been really quite extraordinary in the sort of way in which she's taken seriously what we've always said, you know, they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat, right? It's always about food. And for all of us leading up to Rosh Hashana, with so many other things, opportunities not available to us, what have we got available in the year of Corona? The year of COVID, we've got food. And so, Lisa, thank you so much. And I'll hand over to you. And we really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be able to report that we've made something that looks like a cake at the end of this. And that won't reflect on you. It will only reflect on me. It's not a cake.
I want you to know. Thank you.
We would like everybody. Oh, sorry, two other things before Lisa starts. One is that Lisa has offered us a cookbook to go to one of our participants. And what we'd like you to do is to look at this. Now for something special.
Wait.
Now for something sweet.
Special and sweet.
Special and sweet. And this is going to go to somebody. But what we'd like you to do is post photographs of your cake at the end of the event or whenever you've finished doing it on Facebook, and there will be a random process by which we'll select the winner. So please post your picture if you want to be in the draw for one of the fantastic cookbooks. And I can tell you I've been using one of the earlier cookbooks and it has improved the food in my household immensely. Lisa, now over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Melinda. So lovely to be here with all of you. Very happy to support the National Council. I think it was actually 2 or 3 years ago. When was the meeting in Melbourne, the international one? Was it 2 years ago, perhaps? And we did a shout out for recipes, and it was actually the ladies from Canada, Go Canada, who submitted recipes. They were the only people, and we've got 2 recipes in our book because of that meeting. And we've made connections over there, which is just wonderful. A big shout out especially to all of you in Melbourne. We in Sydney are really feeling your pain as much as we can. We really think about you, and we just hope and pray every day that your numbers go down and that this roadmap goes quickly. We really feel for you. And we in Sydney, life is sort of, I won't say back to normal, but it's sort of COVID life now. And we're pretty lucky here in this bubble, and we're just hoping that it stays like that and doing everything we can to make sure it does. So lots of our collective love to all of you in Melbourne. And hopefully these baking sessions give you some sort of distraction and entertainment, and then you can have a beautiful cake afterwards. So it's a win-win, I think. If you like eating cake, and who doesn't, right? Now, Melinda said that she hopes that some of you might have something that looks like a cake afterwards. I'm really aspiring for something much better than that. I hope that you will all have the best honey cake you've ever made at the end of today. Okay, that's the aim, because to me, this honey cake is one of those recipes that you will keep with you forever. So the story goes like this. In our first book, Monday Morning Cooking Club, which is the ones with the 4 hands on the front cover, we had a cake called Gina's Hair Raising Honey Cake. And it came from my friend in Sydney, Karen Goodman, who got it from her friend in Melbourne, Gina Sport. And the story went like this. And this is a cake that I had been making probably for 20 years when we got it. Like for a long time, it had been in families, and Gina had always made it. And then Karen had made it. And the story goes like this. Gina was making it and it was made in the stand mixer, and you alternate dry ingredients, wet ingredients, and water. And she was leaning into the mixer and alternating her ingredients, and a bit of her hair got stuck around the beater and pulled out like a little chunk of it. It's very sad when I tell it, but now 30 years later we can laugh about it. And so the cake is called Gina's Hair Raising Honey Cake, the original one. And the moral of the story is, of course, to tie your hair back before you start cooking, and don't lean into the mixmaster. So we love that cake so much, and that's the cake that I've been making for family and friends forever. But we decided it was such a huge cake. Some people don't love the cocoa in it, and it was time to give it a facelift, I guess. So we halved it, and instead of the cocoa, we've added spices and tea. And it just makes an amazing cake, or takes an amazing cake to a new level. So this is the new version of Gina's Hair Raising Cake. It's in this book. You can find the recipe in this book, but I'm going to give you the recipe today, and I think you've got it anyway through this event. So it's a great recipe to have, and I hope you enjoy this cook along. And I also hope that you're all ready to cook with me, because then it's fun. And please feel free to ask questions along the side. I can see it in my chat, and I will get to it as I find a break in what I'm doing. So please feel free to ask absolutely anything. And even if you think I've asked it, ask it again if you want to know the answer. I'm really happy to go over things. So let's start with ingredients that you'll need today. So you need 3/4 cup or 110 grams. I do like to weigh everything when I'm baking. Oh, there's the ingredients. Fantastic in the chat. Thanks, Danielle. That's really good. I'll go through it anyway. 3/4 cup of plain flour, 3/4 cup of self-raising flour, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda or bicarbonate of soda. Note that this is not baking powder. This is baking soda. It's a different thing and it does a different thing. And this sort of baking soda you use when you've got something acidic in your recipe, like honey. So it just works very well to give a beautiful foamy aeration, I guess, to the mixture. It's really good. Then we need spices, and feel free to substitute if you don't like any of the spices that we've chosen. We've got 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice, and 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. And that's about 1.5 teaspoons-ish of spice. Feel free to substitute, whatever you like. So that's the dry ingredients: flour, baking soda, and spice. Then we need wet ingredients. For the wet ingredients, we've got 3/4 cup of sugar. We always use caster sugar for baking, just because I feel it dissolves quicker and it's less work for the sugar to actually dissolve. But if you've got white sugar, that's absolutely fine. 100 mils of oil, that's 1/3 cup and 1 tablespoon of oil. And I am using grapeseed oil. You can use light olive oil, you can use canola, vegetable, any neutral oil that you have will be perfect. And 2 eggs and some vanilla. I'm using a beautiful vanilla paste, which is the one you can see the little vanilla seeds in it. And of course, honey. We're going to do 250 grams of honey, which is 3/4 cup, but I'm going to measure it straight into the bowl. It's just as much easier. Okay, so someone's using half white and half wholemeal flour. Yes, absolutely. I think that if you're happy with the denseness that you'll have, I think that'd be lovely. And to mix the dry and wet ingredients together, we're going to need 3/4 cup of freshly brewed black tea that I just realized in this minute that I have over here. Hold on a sec. Hold me one sec. I just have to get my tea back. Okay. All right. So we've got 3/4 cup, and let me just get this right, of tea. So we need 3/4 cup of boiling water, or hot water is fine. Sorry, there's always one thing I forget. Yep, 3/4, 1 drop out. Okay, so let's start with the tea. So pop your tea in the tea bag. My water was warm and now it's not, so we'll just not worry about that for the moment. Let's talk about what we're going to cook it in. This recipe is perfect in a wide loaf tin. This loaf tin is a 6-cup capacity, 1,500 mils, and you can see it's wider than the normal. It just gives a beautiful product. not everybody's going to have this size tin, and you can cook it in absolutely anything. You're just going to have to adjust the cooking time. My word of warning is this is a very quick rising cake mixture. It's very liquid and it's very quick rising. So you don't want to fill any tin you use more than 2/3, because if you do, you're going to have it flowing over into the oven, which is not very good for the oven, the base of the oven, because it's sticky and it's hard to clean. My other word of advice is to always bake a cake like this on an oven tray, so that if it does overflow, at least you can eat the bit that falls onto the oven tray and it's not on the bottom of the oven. Today I'm going to be using this one. This is a disposable, it's really lovely because I've been making some for friends. A disposable loaf tin. It's a bit smaller than that one, and it's actually 1200 mils, which is not quite the 1500 that I wanted. It's just under 5 cups. So I'm not going to use all the mixture. You'll see when I fill it. And I'm going to do 2 little cupcakes for some lucky person this afternoon, just like this, which I'm going to spray with canola spray so the cakes come out. So that's how versatile this cake is. Any tin you've got, let's get it ready. The first thing you need to do is to line it with baking paper if you can. So get some baking paper. I always use this. I don't love the taste of it, to be honest, but for sticking paper to tins, it's really good. So let's start by lining our tin. Cut your baking paper to the right size, and then we're just going to spray the inside and pop it in. Sometimes the only thing that works, and this honey cake is so sticky that unfortunately the canola spray is the best thing to get it out of a bunt tin or a tricky tin. So I'm going to use it, although it's not my best thing because of the flavour, but it does work the best. So I'm going to grease those. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So let's start by putting the dry ingredients together into a bowl. We need to sift them together. There's a few ways you can do it. What I like to do is use this because it's just quick and easy. So put all your dry ingredients into the colander or the sieve, whatever you've got. Plain flour, self-raising flour, baking soda also goes in. Okay, so I see somebody's asked, and the spices. Okay, somebody's asked about a square tin, 21 by 21. I can't tell you off the top of my head without doing maths whether it's the right thing. The best thing to do is work out the volume of it. So this is a mixture that fits perfectly in a 1500 1.5 litre 6 cup tin. So that's the best way to check. Otherwise, you can make the mixture and pour it into the tin and see how you go. If it's too flat, it doesn't matter. You just don't want it to be more than 2/3. I'm going to sift these into bowl number 1. The other thing you can do if you don't have a sieve is just use a whisk and whisk the ingredients, the dry ingredients together. It works very well. This mixes them and aerates them. It does both at the same time. But it's really for the mixing that we need in this cake. Okay, because you want to get that baking soda and the spices evenly throughout. Okay, and I'm going to do one more round just to be sure. Doesn't have to be double sifted. It's actually fine just doing it like this. But today I felt like double sifting. So again, all the dry ingredients into a bowl. Hopefully everybody is following along. Okay. Okay. So everyone should have the dry ingredients in a bowl, sifted together. And we're going to add one thing that I always forget is a pinch of salt. I think it's really important in a sweet cake to just have that tiny bit of salt. The other thing I'm going to add to my cake today, which is completely optional, is a handful of walnuts. If anyone's got any walnuts nearby and you're feeling like a nutty, spicy honey cake, they really go well with this cake. It's not obligatory, it's not part of the recipe, it's just an added extra. All right, let's talk about the wet ingredients. We're going to put the wet ingredients into another bowl. This is the bowl that's going to have the batter of the cake, so it needs to be obviously bigger than 1.5 litres, but you'd probably want a big bowl. This is probably about a 4 or 5 litre bowl. You want a big bowl, otherwise it's too hard to mix. I'm going to use a handheld electric mixer. You can use a stand mixer, you can use a bar mix, and if you don't have any of those, you can whisk it by hand. You'll need to work hard for a few minutes though, because we want it to be really foamy and light and smooth, and the electric mixer does the best job. All right, so let's put everything in here. We're going to start with the oil. And then what I like to do, because it's fun, is to measure the honey directly into the dish with the oil. You can also use the glass or the container that the oil has just come out of to weigh the honey, and that'll help it come out of the container. Weighing honey, people find it difficult, but if you oil the container or measure it straight into the dish, it's much easier. And I always go by weight. So I'm going to play, it's a bit like playing chicken actually, to measure it straight in. It's sort of my fun for the morning. So I'm going to measure 250 grams, which is 3/4 cup of honey. And I'm just going to go quite slowly and watch the scale as I go. It's really playing chicken with honey. To 250. And if you go over by 10, 20 grams, it just doesn't matter. And that's it. Okay. So we've got 260 grams and I'm okay with that. Honey. Then we're going to add the sugar. Vanilla, which I never measure with a spoon because you lose half of it in the spoon. I just eyeball it, and I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon. Okay, a question about, are you meant to remove the wholemeal bits or leave them in? Do you mean in the spices or in the flour? It depends what it is. I've put them back in the spices. It's probably just the husk of the nutmeg, and that's fine.
In the flour, the wholemeal bits in the wholemeal flour.
Go back in the cake for sure. Yeah, even though it won't go in the, it won't come through with the sieve. Okay, and now I'm going to add the eggs, and I'm going to, you know, I know some people check them for religious reasons, but I check them for another reason. And those of you who have been with me on cooking demos before, I've heard this story, but I have to tell it again because it is such a good story about checking your eggs before you put them into a mixture. My daughter, who's in her 20s, was making shakshuka for 12 friends one day, had the big pot of tomato sauce on the stove, was cracking the eggs directly into the pan, not into a glass first, and the last egg of 18 eggs was off, and it was so off that it ruined the whole dish of shakshuka, and she had to throw everything out, and it's heartbreaking, right? So now she always has learnt, and it's a good reminder to always check your eggs, obviously for blood, but also if they're off, it just is the worst thing ever. And we're putting the eggs into the mixture. That's 2 eggs. Now, the thing that I want to tell you about eggs and sugar, if you have eggs and sugar in a bowl and the egg yolks, the sugar sits on the egg yolks, the sugar will burn the yolks and you'll get these granules that you'll never get out of your cake or whatever you're making. So don't let them sit. Rather, whisk them with a whisk quickly, or this is not a good spot. Okay, so wet ingredients. Either whisk them with a fork or a thing if you're going to let them sit for longer than a minute. Mixer ready. We're going to mix. Everyone can mix at the same time, and I won't talk because you won't be able to hear me. Let's just start for about 30 seconds. Start off slow always and build up. Okay, everyone should be mixing. Okay, so hopefully everybody was mixing then. Just a reminder, we have the wet ingredients in here. We have the 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of sugar, 100 mils of oil, and half a teaspoon of vanilla, and of course 250 grams of honey. I'm going to scrape down the sides with a spatula. This is one essential tool, a silicone spatula that I can't live without. And every time you mix something in a bowl, it needs scraping down, without a doubt. The honey might have slipped to the bottom. You need to make sure you've got it all in the mixture. We have not put the tea in yet. Yes, sorry about that, Karen. Good point. You were meant to turn the oven on and I didn't mention it at all, but that's all right. Please turn your ovens on now for 180 degrees Celsius, not fan forced, okay? Just a regular conventional oven temperature, 180 degrees. Thank you, Karen, for the reminder. You'll all need your ovens to heat up. Okay, thanks for the reminder. So what kind of vanilla do I use? I am using a beautiful one that I buy at Simon Johnson. It's called Nielsen Massey Madagascar Vanilla Bean Paste, and it is so good that you could drink it. It is expensive, but it is one of the most beautiful products.
Where did you say it's from?
I buy it from Simon Johnson, but gourmet food stores like Essential Ingredient, I think, also sell it. It's Nielsen Massey is the brand, and it's a vanilla bean paste, and it's really a beautiful product. We did a little experiment.
Sorry, I've got organic vanilla powder. Would that work?
I don't know about vanilla powder. I don't know actually what vanilla powder is. I know there's extract, I know there's paste, and I know there's essence. But taste it and see if you like the addition. Try, I imagine a powder. Actually, don't know what it would be. Dry ground beans or something.
Yeah.
Trying a cake and seeing what it's like. But we tasted a lot of the supermarket brands, and it's an interesting experiment. They don't taste nice.
You have alcohol in them.
They do, but they're bitter. This, you could drink this, right? You could make a cocktail with this and drink it. It is so delicious. So that's the sort of thing I want to put in my cakes and my biscuits because it's so good. I go through too much of it. It's so good. Okay.
And sorry, I joined late. Can we use any oil? What other oil?
Oil? At the moment, I'm using this grapeseed oil. It's a Dahlia brand, which I have to say is my favorite brand. It's a supermarket brand. I don't like the other one, which is Monin at all, and I love this one. But I have been reading lately that this is bad for you, and that at heat it does all these terrible things, and that we should really just be using olive oil for everything. So everyone has to make their own.
No, I don't agree with that.
I stopped using this for a while because of the olive oil thing, and now I've just gone back to it for baking because it just gives very good results. The other thing you could do is use a light olive oil without a lot of flavour, and that will be also fine.
Okay.
So call Simon Johnson, they may have it. I know they were out of stock of it last week here, but I don't know. There are also some other good brands. You need to just investigate the vanilla yourself.
I'm on the north. There's no Simon Johnson here.
North in Sydney?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is in Northbridge.
Oh, okay.
They got a beautiful store in Northbridge, actually. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So let's just give it another beat. I want it to be.
Just ask.
Yeah.
I've used coconut oil. How's that with your experience?
Yeah, different to oil, and it's a different texture, and it'll give the cake a different texture and flavour. I haven't used it. It would be really good to get some feedback to see what it's like. Okay. It's not a straight substitute for regular oil, so I'd like to see, it's got a different, because it's solid at room temperature, it's going to have a different effect on the cake. So let's see what happens. Please let us know.
You could use fractionated coconut oil.
Is that liquid at room temperature? Yeah. All right, so let's give it another beat, everybody. We want smooth and foamy. So just mix it around, turn your bowl. So to the person whose mixer was broken, you need to be whisking now like mad, okay? Working your arm, it's gonna hurt because you need to work hard for a good few minutes. So I can't remember who that was, keep whisking, okay? And we'll just give it another 30 seconds. Okay, everybody needs to just check that there's nothing to be scraped down on the sides. If you feel the mixture now you should just feel a hint of the sugar. You're never going to get it dissolved completely, and that's absolutely fine. We're not aiming for that, but you don't want to really feel the sugar very, very strongly at this point. Give it a mix, make sure the honey at the bottom has not sunk down, or the honey has not sunk down to the bottom. And now we're going to go to stage 2, which is mixing the dry, the wet, and the tea. So take your tea bag out, squeeze it, because remember you probably measured 3/4 of a cup of water, and you don't want to lose too much with your tea bag. So I've got 3/4 of a cup. The water is warm, and I'm going to alternate. So if you're doing it in the stand mixer, it's much easier because you can just put the stand mixer on with the wet ingredients in it and just alternate dry tea. But because we're doing it this way, it just takes a little bit more, you know, concentration perhaps. So I'm going to put I'm going to take my spatula out because I do not need it at the moment. And we're just going to do it in about thirds, let's say. So a little bit of the flour. Get your tea ready in your mixer. Just on a low speed, just combining it. Because we all know that if you put all the flour in at once, you just get that in your face, which is not ideal. Another third of the dry ingredients. Tea. Mixer. Tea. Scrape it down. See, I'm not even worrying about getting every last speck mixed in. It doesn't matter. It's very, very easy. We just don't want to overload it at once. And now the remainder. So that is all of the flour, all of the dry ingredients are in there. And now I'm going to add the last of the tea. Got my mixture on low, my beater on low, because we don't need to sort of beat it too much here. Okay. Scraping down the sides as we always have to do, as I said. Now, for any of you, I should say, for those of you who like to lick the bowl, this batter is really delicious. Just saying. Okay, give it another mix. On low speed, just to make sure all the lumps are out, and that's it. Done.
Is anyone doing this in the Thermomix?
I am not a Thermomix person, so I don't even know about baking cakes in the Thermomix. Is that something that you do? Do you put all the ingredients in and a cake comes out? Like, how does it work? Or is it just the mixture you'd make in the Thermomix?
I know, you just make the mixture.
I just think it's so easy in a bowl with a, you know, with a handheld beater.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're a Thermomix person, I know that Thermomix people love to do everything in the Thermomix, so it sort of makes sense that you would put it all in and do it. Not sure.
Yeah, it goes much slower than that, so yeah.
All right, so the batter is done. The oven needs to be on, a reminder, 180 degrees Celsius, conventional. And that's actually the oven temperature that I bake most things on. Most cakes are at that temperature. Most other things I cook are at that temperature. Just people ask me, is it conventional or fan forced? Whatever the, you know, I think that if it's fan forced, it's probably going to be 165 if that's the temperature that you cook most things on. It's a standard, not too hot, not too mild oven temperature for baking. So get your container ready. I'm going to actually get an oven tray out because it's really important to, as I said earlier, put your baking tin on a tray, particularly with this cake, because it tends to, you won't believe how much it rises. So there's that, and there's my 2 extra ones. You, of course, could be using your loaf pan. You could be using a small round, whatever it is that you've got. You could be doing it in cupcakes, in patty pans. Just make sure with the patty pans that you put them in a muffin tin. This mixture is so liquid that if you poured it into a patty pan that was standing on its own, it would just spread everywhere. I've had it happen to me. And we're just going to pour the mixture, make sure it's, you know, it's been sitting for a few minutes, make sure it hasn't separated or anything. I'm going to just pour it in. Actually, yeah, I'm going to pour it in. I'm going to put my walnuts in afterwards. And I'm going to fill it up really to 2/3 and no more. Like, I know it's tempting for everybody. It happens to me too, to think, oh, I'll just fill it up a little bit more. It'll just be a bigger cake. This cake just works best at 2/3. I've baked so many of these, and I cooked one in here last week where I nearly filled it to the top. Not only did it flow out onto the tray, but it just wasn't as good because there wasn't as much room for it to rise well. This way at 2/3, it's perfect. And I'm going to fill these also 2/3 and no more. It's probably a bit much, and I've got a bit more to do more, but anyway, well, that'll do for now. So you can see I've got my 3 things. I've got them on a tray and they're ready to bake. But before I do that, I'm feeling like walnuts today. So I'm going to add a handful of walnuts into, I'm just putting that many into my cake. And it just adds a lovely nutty touch that goes so well with the spices. And I'm just going to poke them in a little bit without really pushing them down, because I want to see them and I would like them to stay on the top, some of them to stay on the top. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to put that in the oven in a moment. Excuse me for 1 second. And I'm going to show you the cake that I made the other day. This is what happens in my house. So I have a cake and I say to my kids who are in their 20s, don't eat the cake because I need it for Thursday because I'm doing a Zoom demo and I want to show everybody the whole cake. This is on Tuesday night. And we had one of my kids begged me and said, please, 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 can we eat it? And I said, no, I can't. I've got to save it for the ladies on Thursday morning. No, please. So guess who won? And here is half the cake. But you can see still, and I want to show you the beautiful outside. It is sticky. It's really sticky. And that's what makes this cake so good. It is best made, so you'll take it out of the oven, let it cool on the bench to room temperature, and then remove it from the tin and wrap it. And I wrap it in a couple of layers of Glad wrap and 1 layer of foil if I'm freezing it as well. It seems to mature and get better over, what day is today? Thursday. So if you do yours today and you wrap it up and save it for tomorrow night, it'll be better. There's something about wrapping it that changes the texture and the stickiness. And I think on day 2, 3, 4, it only gets better. And I want to show you the texture of this beautiful cake. It smells to me like Rosh Hashana. There's no other way to describe that smell. And I'm sure you all know what I mean. I started cooking honey cakes a couple of weeks ago and my kids would come downstairs and say, smells like Rosh Hashana. And I'm like, exactly. So just reminds me of every Rosh Hashana to have this cake in the house. And the texture is delicious. Is perfect. The crumb is perfect. You can see how easy it is to make. There's just no way that this cake cannot work. The only thing I'll say to you that is the minor challenge of it, I think, is the cooking time, because everybody's oven is different and everybody's tin size is going to be different for this one. So you really need to watch. So if you're going to do something like the small cupcake that I did, this one, I am going to guess that this is going to take 25 minutes. But I'm going to put my oven timer on for 25. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to shake the thing. And if it's still wobbly at the top in the middle, then it's not ready. I'm going to add another 5 minutes and so on. What you want is when you shake it in the oven, there should be no wobble. It doesn't matter if you can feel, like I always put my hand on the top of cakes to feel if they're ready. And you should be able to feel that it's cooked all the way to your hand, not hard, but just cooked, okay? But no wobble. Take it out, let it cool, as I said, and then wrap it up before eating it. And you will have this absolutely magnificent cake that you'll be very happy with. And everyone who you share it with will be very happy with it too. That is the Monday Morning Cooking Club spiced honey cake. And I hope that you'll all post your pictures, because I love to see everybody's versions and I know everybody's looks different. So please send pics. We'd love to see them. And if you've got any more questions, I'm really, really happy to answer. And as soon as we finish, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, and a fresh cup of tea, and have a slice of this because the smell is amazing. Joe says, don't I use a skewer? I don't actually. It's not my way of testing cakes because I find that it's unreliable for me. I know a lot of people do. I use my hand, and so I would just place it gently on the top of a cake, whether it's a chiffon, and I can feel, you can just feel with your hand that it's cooked all the way up to your hand, and that's what I use. Any more questions? Would love to answer any more before we...
Has anyone tried a gluten-free version of this cake?
Yeah, we have. It's a bit like cakes on Pesach. You know, we sort of almost accept a level just under brilliant because it's a Pesach cake. And I feel with the gluten-free version, it's the same. So if you have a gluten intolerance and you're used to gluten-free products, then you would probably find it acceptable. For someone who's not used to it, I find the texture not
No, it's not the same.
I'm going to play around with it today and try. This is what I'm going to try. I'm going to do it next. 3/4 of a cup of almond meal and 3/4 of a cup of gluten-free plain flour, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of gluten-free baking powder. That's what I'm going to try today in place of the plain and the self-raising flour, and see if it works. I'm hoping that it'll just be magnificent, but I don't know. I'm going to post.
Can you let us know?
If it's good, I'm going to post it on Instagram.
Okay, brilliant.
You know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. Are you on Instagram? I'll post it on Instagram anyway in my story. Whether
okay, Emma can go on.
Yeah. So Monday morning CC on Instagram, and I'm going to do that today at some point and see. I have a gluten-free friend, and I want to make him a honey cake, so I'm going to try it. I want to make a great honey cake.
And where'd you get those stainless steel cupcake things from?
I think they were from, there's a shop called Chef's Warehouse in Sydney. I got them years ago. They're really good ones.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, any more questions before we head off? Hopefully everybody's cake is in there. Let me talk about time. I didn't talk about it actually. 180 degrees for a loaf tin, for a wide loaf tin, I do 25 minutes at 180 and 25 minutes at 160. And then you might need another 10 or so. For those disposable ones, because they're made of cardboard and they don't conduct heat at all, I need to cook that for about 40 minutes at 180. I don't reduce the temperature till the end for that one because it just doesn't, I've tried so many of them, they just don't conduct heat.
So Lisa, I have to say that was an amazingly simple process. I think that even I was able to make a cake. This is quite an achievement. And with supervision, I'll have to tell you, my granddaughter was supervising me to make sure that I did it okay, so we'll be able to report. Thank you so very, very much. I will post, we will share with the group your gluten-free cake if it works, and we'll certainly be posting other things that the Monday Morning Cookbook Club are doing on the National Council Facebook group. So thank you very much. And Lisa, it's been a really great pleasure working with you. Shana Tova.
Thank you for having me. It's been really lovely.
And to everybody out there, Shana Tova. And we look forward to seeing you at so many more of our events that are coming up. Thank you very much. Shana Tova.
Bye. See you later.
Bye-bye.